The sound of military boots echoed through the empty mess hall at Fort Bragg as 4 elite Rangers pushed through the double doors at 2100 hours. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows across the polished floor where Ashley Carter knelt, scrubbing at a stubborn stain that had baked into the tiles during dinner service. At 5'3", she was dwarfed by the industrial mop bucket beside her thin frame hidden beneath an old combat jacket that had seen better days. The jacket hung loose on her shoulders, its unit patches faded and barely readable, looking like something rescued from a donation bin. Ethan Blake led the group, his 200 pounds of muscle moving, with the confident swagger of someone who had never met a challenge he couldn't overcome. The Ranger Sergeant's arms were covered in tactical tattoos, each one telling a story of deployments and operations that he made sure everyone knew about. His eyes landed on the small woman scrubbing the floor, and his lips curled into a predatory smile. He kicked the bucket hard, sending dirty water cascading across the section of floor Ashley had just cleaned, the gray liquid spreading like a storm cloud across white tiles. "Look what we have here, boys," Ethan announced, his voice booming in the empty space. "Someone thinks they're a soldier just because they throw on stolen gear from the PX store." The mockery in his tone was sharp enough to cut glass, designed to humiliate and establish dominance. Connor Mitchell, standing at 6'2", with the bearing of someone who believed his corporal rank made him untouchable, moved to block the only exit. His perfectly pressed uniform and regulation haircut spoke of someone who memorized every manual but had never learned the difference between authority and leadership. "Where'd you steal this jacket from? The lost and found bin? Or maybe you dug it out of a dumpster behind the barracks?" Mason Hayes and Logan Foster completed the circle, positioning themselves strategically to cut off any escape route. Mason, a specialist who wore his arrogance like a medal, cracked his knuckles with deliberate slowness. Logan, the youngest of the group at barely 21, tried to match the aggression of his seniors, despite the uncertainty flickering in his eyes. Ashley said nothing. She slowly stood up, wringing out her cleaning cloth with methodical precision. Her brown eyes remained fixed on the floor, avoiding all eye contact in a way that suggested submission, perhaps fear. The movements were careful, measured, like someone afraid of triggering violence. Logan snatched the mop from her hands, snapping the wooden handle across his knee and tossing the pieces to the floor with a clatter that echoed off the walls. "I'm talking to you, fake soldier," Logan's voice cracked slightly on the last word, betraying his youth despite his attempt at intimidation. The mess hall fell into a thick, oppressive silence. Security cameras mounted in each corner recorded every second, their red lights blinking steadily. The air conditioning hummed, mixing with the buzz of fluorescent lights to create a white noise backdrop to the brewing confrontation. None of the 4 Rangers noticed the slight tension in Ashley's shoulders, the way her weight shifted almost imperceptibly to balance on the balls of her feet, or how her breathing remained perfectly controlled despite the threatening situation. What none of them knew, what they couldn't possibly imagine, was that in the next 20 minutes, everything they thought they understood about rank, power, and respect would be shattered completely. The woman they saw as nothing more than janitorial staff, someone beneath their notice except as a target for their amusement, would soon reveal truths that would shake the very foundation of Fort Bragg. Ashley bent down to pick up the broken mop pieces, her movements slow and deliberate. The old jacket shifted on her shoulders, and for just a moment, Connor caught a glimpse of something at her collar, but the lighting was too poor to make out details. She gathered the wood fragments with the patience of someone who had cleaned up worse messes, both literal and metaphorical. "You deaf or just stupid?" Ethan stepped closer, using his size to loom over her. "When a ranger talks to you, you respond with respect. You understand that, janitor?" The word janitor dripped with contempt, as if the job itself was something shameful. Ashley's fingers paused for just a fraction of a second on the broken wood before continuing their task. When she finally stood, she kept her eyes downcast, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm just trying to do my job." "Your job?" Mason laughed, the sound harsh and mocking. "Your job is to stay in your lane and not play dress-up in uniforms you didn't earn. That jacket has unit insignia on it. You know what stolen valor means in the UCMJ? If you're watching from any military base or veteran community across America, hit that subscribe button right now. We share untold stories of hidden warriors who serve in silence. Drop a comment with your unit or base. Let's see how many brothers and sisters in arms are watching. Your support helps us honor those who never seek recognition but deserve our deepest respect. The Rangers' harassment continued, each taking turns to demonstrate their supposed superiority. Connor pointed at the patches on Ashley's jacket, his finger jabbing at the faded cloth. That's not even the right configuration for current regs. This is what, pre-2009? You couldn't even steal something current? Ashley's response was quiet but precise. Bis são bisamigis. That configuration was standard from 2005 to 2009 for units deployed to Kandahar province. The specificity of her answer made Connor pause, but only for a moment before his arrogance reasserted itself. Oh, so you've been reading Wikipedia, doing research for your little costume? He reached out and grabbed her collar, intending to examine the jacket more closely. The sudden contact made Ashley's body tense, though she didn't pull away. Hidden beneath the grabbed fabric, metal clicked against metal, a sound too quiet for the Rangers to notice over their own laughter. Private Noah Richards pushed through the kitchen doors, a dish towel still in his hands from KP duty. The young Marine took in the scene, 4 Rangers surrounding a small woman, and his sense of justice flared. Hey, is everything okay out here? Ethan turned his glare on the private. Mind your business, Marine. This doesn't concern you. With respect, Sergeant, Noah began, but Logan cut him off. No one asked for your opinion, dishwasher. Get back in the kitchen where you belong. Noah hesitated, torn between his desire to help and the reality of challenging 4 NCOs who outranked him. Ashley caught his eye and gave the slightest shake of her head, a gesture so small the Rangers missed it entirely. Reluctantly, Noah retreated to the kitchen doorway, but remained watching, his phone partially raised as if ready to call for help or record what was happening. Ethan kicked the water bucket again, sending another wave across the floor. You know what I think? I think you're one of those wannabes who hangs around base, probably dating some private, wearing his clothes to feel important. Is that it? Your boyfriend deploy and leave you his jacket to remember him by? The casual cruelty of the assumption, the way it reduced her to nothing more than someone's dependent, would have stung if Ashley hadn't heard worse. She had been called many things in her career, faced discrimination and doubt from people who thought her size and gender disqualified her from service. But she had also been called other things, titles that these Rangers couldn't imagine, designations that existed in classified files they would never have clearance to read. Mason decided to escalate the situation. He grabbed Ashley's arm, his grip tight enough to bruise, and tried to force her against the wall. The movement was aggressive, intended to establish physical dominance. But something unexpected happened. Ashley's body moved with his force, not resisting but redirecting. Her free hand came up in what looked like a defensive gesture, but was actually positioning, her feet shifting into a stance that anyone trained in close quarters combat would recognize. For just a moment, Mason felt his balance shift, his own momentum being used against him. Before he could process what was happening, Ashley had pivoted, broken his grip, and stepped back, all in one fluid motion that took less than 2 seconds. It looked almost accidental, as if she had simply stumbled in the right direction. Did you just... Mason stared at his empty hand, then at Ashley, confusion replacing aggression on his face. I'm sorry, Ashley said quickly, raising her hands in a placating gesture. I just got startled. I didn't mean to. But Mason's ego wouldn't let him acknowledge that he had been outmaneuvered by someone half his size. You think you're clever? Think you know some self-defense moves from a YouTube video? The kitchen door opened wider, and Sergeant Amber Sullivan from the supply room peered in, having heard the commotion from across the hall. Her eyes took in the scene, and something in Ashley's posture made her pause. Amber had served 2 tours in Afghanistan, had worked with various units, including some whose names were never spoken aloud. There was something familiar in the way Ashley held herself, a quality that transcended conscious observation and spoke directly to trained instinct. Everything all right in here? Amber asked, her tone carefully neutral. Everything's fine, Sergeant, Connor repeated without looking at her. Just teaching someone about proper respect for military property. Amber's eyes lingered on Ashley for another moment. There was something there, something that nagged at her memory. The way Ashley's weight was distributed, the careful positioning of her feet, the controlled breathing despite the stress of the situation. It was like looking at a photograph slightly out of focus, recognizing the shape but not quite able to make out the details. Logan decided to rejoin the harassment, perhaps feeling left out of the action. You know what the penalty is for impersonating military personnel? It's not just a fine, it's jail time, federal prison. Is that what you want? Ashley remained silent, her eyes still downcast. She began folding the cleaning cloth in her hands, the movements automatic and precise. The fold pattern was unusual, creating perfect angles and tight corners. Anyone who had been through basic training would recognize it as the tactical square fold, a method taught for field equipment that had to be stored in minimal space. It was muscle memory, performed without conscious thought. Connor noticed the fold pattern and his eyes narrowed. "Where did you learn to do that?" Ashley's hands stilled. She looked at the perfectly folded cloth as if seeing it for the first time. I've worked here for a while. You pick things up." "You pick things up," Ethan repeated mockingly. "Right. And I suppose you just picked up how to identify unit patches and deployment dates too." The mess hall door opened again, and Master Sergeant Raymond Cross entered for his nightly inspection. The mess hall supervisor was a 20-year veteran with a reputation for running the tightest food service operation on base. His eyes immediately took in the water on the floor, the broken mop, and the 4 Rangers surrounding Ashley. "Is there a problem here?" His voice carried the authority of someone who had dealt with every possible situation the military could throw at him. "No problem, Master Sergeant," Ethan replied smoothly. "Just having a conversation about proper military protocols." Cross's eyes moved to Ashley, taking in her defensive posture and the aggressive positioning of the Rangers. "Carter, you all right?" "Yes, Master Sergeant," Ashley replied quietly. The use of her last name made the Rangers pause. It suggested a level of familiarity, a recognition that elevated her slightly from anonymous janitor to someone with a name, an identity within the base structure. "This woman is wearing military insignia without authorization," Connor stated formally, as if making an official report. "We were addressing the situation." Cross looked at Ashley's jacket, then back at the Rangers. His expression remained neutral, giving nothing away. "I see. And this addressing required 4 of you?" The question hung in the air, highlighting the absurdity of 4 trained soldiers confronting one small woman about a piece of clothing. Logan shifted uncomfortably, suddenly aware of how the situation might look to an outside observer. Military bases now utilize advanced biometric security systems that scan retinas, fingerprints, and even gait patterns to identify personnel. These classified level scanners can detect micro-expressions and stress indicators, instantly flagging potential security threats. The same technology used in Tier 1 operations now protects sensitive installations worldwide. Each device costs upwards of $100,000, storing millions of classified personnel records in quantum-encrypted databases that even foreign intelligence can't penetrate. Master Sergeant Cross's inspection continued, his experienced eyes cataloging details the Rangers had missed. The way Ashley's boots were laced, left over right with the specific tension pattern taught in advanced infantry training. The wear pattern on her hands, calluses in places that suggested extensive weapons handling. The small scar on her left eyebrow, the kind that came from close combat training when someone got too close with an elbow strike. "Maybe we should all just take a step back," Cross suggested, his tone making it clear this was not actually a suggestion. "Carter has work to finish, and I'm sure you Rangers have somewhere else to be." But Ethan wasn't ready to let it go. His pride had been engaged, and backing down now would feel like defeat. "With all due respect, Master Sergeant, stolen valor is a serious offense. We have a responsibility to address it when we see it." "And have you verified that any valor has been stolen?" Cross asked mildly. "Have you run her information through proper channels? Filed a report? Or are you just making assumptions based on appearance?" The question cut to the heart of the matter. They were making assumptions, judging based on what they saw. A small woman in a menial job wearing military clothing. They had created a narrative that fit their preconceptions and were now committed to it, despite growing evidence that something didn't add up. Ashley finally spoke, her voice still quiet, but with a firmness that hadn't been there before. "If there's a concern about my jacket, I can remove it. I don't want any trouble." "No," Ethan said quickly, sensing an opportunity. "If you're legitimate, prove it. What's your MOS? What unit were you with? What's your service number?" The questions came rapid fire, designed to trip up someone trying to fake military service. Ashley's hands tightened on the cleaning cloth, knuckles whitening slightly. For just a moment, something flickered in her eyes, something the Rangers were too focused on their interrogation to notice. From the kitchen doorway, Noah watched the exchange with growing unease. He had pulled out his phone, not to record, but to send a quick message to someone. His fingers flew over the screen. "Situation in mess hall, 4 Rangers harassing civilian. Might need intervention." The response came back almost immediately. "On my way." Connor decided to push harder. "If you served, you'd have a DD-214. You'd have documentation. So, where is it? I don't carry my military records while mopping floors, Ashley replied, the first hint of an edge creeping into her voice. Convenient, Mason sneered. The fake soldier doesn't have any proof. What a surprise. Logan, still trying to prove himself to his seniors, pointed at Ashley's hands. Look at those hands. Soft. Never held a rifle in her life. Probably never even been to a range. Ashley glanced down at her hands. They were small, yes, but anyone who looked closely would see the story written there. The callus on the web of her right hand from thousands of hours on the trigger. The faint scars across her knuckles from hand-to-hand combat training. The slight bend in her left pinky from a break that hadn't healed quite straight, courtesy of a mission in a place whose name was still classified. You can tell a lot about someone from their hands, she said quietly, looking directly at Logan for the first time. For instance, yours show you've been in service less than 2 years. Still got the indentation from your class ring, which means you probably went to college on ROTC scholarship. The way you stand favors your left knee, probably from a training injury you haven't fully rehabbed. You're right eye dominant, but shoot lefty, which means someone tried to correct your stance but didn't finish the job. The accuracy of the assessment stunned Logan into silence. The details were too specific, too precise to be guesswork. Connor and Mason exchanged glances, uncertainty creeping into their expressions. Ethan, however, doubled down. So, you're observant. That doesn't make you a soldier. Anyone can learn to read people. Con artists do it all the time. The door to the mess hall opened again, and Captain Lily Anderson entered, still in her duty uniform despite the late hour. The intelligence officer often worked irregular hours, and grabbing coffee from the mess hall at odd times was normal for her. But tonight, she had received a text from Noah Richards that suggested her presence might be needed. Anderson took in the scene with the practiced eye of someone trained to assess situations quickly. The body language told the story. 4 aggressors, 1 defender, several witnesses maintaining safe distances. Her gaze lingered on Ashley, and like Amber Sullivan before her, something nagged at her memory. Evening, everyone, Anderson said pleasantly, though her eyes remained sharp. Rather late for a gathering in the mess hall, isn't it? Ma'am, the Rangers said in unison, acknowledging the officer's presence. We were just addressing a case of stolen valor, Captain, Ethan explained, his tone shifting to the formal respect required when addressing an officer. I see, Anderson replied, pulling out her phone with casual movements that belied the speed with which her fingers moved across the screen. And what evidence do you have of this stolen valor? She's wearing military insignia without authorization, Connor stated. Has anyone verified she doesn't have authorization? Anderson asked, her phone screen reflecting off her glasses as she typed something. She won't provide any identification or service information, Mason added. Anderson looked at Ashley, studying her with an intensity that made the Rangers shift uncomfortably. What's your name? Ashley Carter, ma'am. Anderson typed the name into her phone, accessing a database the Rangers couldn't see. Her expression remained neutral as results populated her screen, but her eyes widened slightly at something she read. She typed again, accessing a deeper level of records that required her intelligence clearance. This confrontation is about to take an unexpected turn. If you believe every service member deserves respect, regardless of their current position, make sure you're subscribed and hit the notification bell. Share this story with your battle buddies. They need to see what happens next. The tension in the mess hall had reached a critical point. Ethan, sensing that the situation was slipping away from his control, decided on one final push. Look, if she's legitimate, it should be easy to prove. One phone call to personnel, one check of the database, and we'd know. But she won't do it because she can't. She's a fraud. Ashley set down her cleaning supplies with deliberate care. When she spoke, her voice had changed subtly. The meekness was gone, replaced by something harder, more focused. Sergeant Blake, you're making assumptions based on incomplete information. That's a dangerous habit in your line of work. The use of his name and rank stopped Ethan cold. He hadn't introduced himself, hadn't mentioned his name at all. How did you... Your name tape, Ashley said simply, though they all knew his name tape was regulation size and impossible to read clearly from her distance in the poor lighting. Connor Mitchell, Mason Hayes, Logan Foster, all from 2nd Battalion, 75th Ranger Regiment. Mitchell is coming up on his 3rd deployment rotation, probably to Syria based on his sun damage patterns. Hayes just got back from a training exercise at Fort Polk, still has the chigger bites on his ankles. Foster is fresh out of Ranger School, less than 6 months, based on how he still stands at parade rest when he's nervous. The specificity of the information, delivered in a calm, analytical tone, created a shift in the atmosphere. This wasn't observation. This was intelligence gathering, the kind of rapid assessment and processing that came from specialized training. Captain Anderson's phone buzzed with incoming information. What she read made her take an involuntary step back. Her fingers flew across the screen, double-checking what she was seeing. The classification level on the file she had accessed was beyond her authorization to fully read, showing only partial information with large sections redacted. "Gentlemen," Anderson said carefully, "I think there might be a misunderstanding here." "What kind of misunderstanding?" Ethan demanded, his aggression now tinged with uncertainty. Anderson looked at Ashley, who gave the slightest shake of her head. A silent communication passed between them, woman to woman, soldier to soldier. Anderson understood. Ashley didn't want her identity revealed. Not yet. Not like this. "Perhaps we should all just," Anderson began, but she was interrupted by the arrival of Major Benjamin Torres, the base training officer. He had been walking past and noticed the unusual gathering in the mess hall. "Captain Anderson, Rangers," Torres acknowledged with a nod. His eyes swept the scene, taking in the tactical positioning, the defensive postures, the water on the floor. "Late-night cleaning detail?" "Sir," Ethan began, but Torres held up a hand. "I was asking Carter," Torres said, his use of Ashley's name causing another ripple of uncertainty among the Rangers. "Yes, sir," Ashley replied. "Just trying to finish up so I can secure the facility." Torres studied her for a long moment. Unlike the Rangers, he had the experience to recognize what they had missed. The way she held herself wasn't just military training, it was elite military training, the kind that took years to develop and more years to master. He had seen it before in operators whose names were never spoken outside secure facilities. "Rangers, I think it's time you return to your barracks," Torres said, his tone making it clear this was an order, not a suggestion. "But sir," Connor protested, "she's wearing—" "I'm aware of what she's wearing, Corporal," Torres cut him off. "I'm also aware that you're harassing a civilian employee who has authorization to be here, while you technically don't. The mess hall closes to general personnel at 2000 hours. So unless you're on KP duty or have specific authorization to be here, you're the ones out of bounds." The reversal caught the Rangers off guard. They had been so focused on Ashley's perceived transgression that they hadn't considered their own violation of base protocols. Logan, in a moment of poor judgment, brought on by youth and frustration, decided to make one last attempt to assert dominance. He reached out quickly, intending to grab Ashley's collar, to tear away the jacket and prove whatever point he thought needed proving. Ashley's reaction was instant and decisive. Her hand came up, deflecting Logan's grab, while her other hand caught his wrist. A simple redirect of force, combined with a pressure point technique, sent Logan to one knee with a surprised gasp. The entire sequence took less than a second, and looked almost gentle to observers, but Logan felt like his wrist was in a vice. "Please don't touch me," Ashley said calmly, releasing his wrist immediately. Logan scrambled back to his feet, face red with embarrassment and anger. "She assaulted me. You all saw it." "I saw you attempt to grab her and her defend herself," Major Torres said evenly. "Would you like to file a formal complaint? Because that would require a full investigation, including why 4 Rangers were in the mess hall after hours, surrounding and harassing a female civilian employee." The threat of official scrutiny deflated Logan's anger. An investigation would not go well for them, and they all knew it. The power dynamic had shifted, though they still didn't understand why or how completely. From the kitchen doorway, Noah Richards watched with a mixture of amazement and confusion. He had been recording the last few minutes on his phone, sensing that something significant was happening, even if he didn't fully understand what. Lieutenant Grace Thompson from base security chose that moment to arrive, having been alerted by the unusual gathering showing up on security monitors. She entered with the confidence of someone who dealt with disturbances regularly, but her expression changed when she saw who was involved. "Major Torres, Captain Anderson," she acknowledged formally. "We noticed an unusual heat signature cluster on the security feeds. Is there a situation requiring security intervention?" "No situation, Lieutenant," Torres replied. "Just a misunderstanding that's been resolved, though perhaps you could escort these Rangers back to their barracks. They seem to have gotten lost." The dismissal was clear and humiliating. The four rangers who had entered the mess hall with such swagger and confidence were now being treated like errant children who needed supervision. Ethan made one last attempt to salvage his pride. This isn't over. If she's claiming military service, there are procedures, verification protocols. You're absolutely right, Sergeant, Captain Anderson said, surprising everyone. There are procedures. Would you like to initiate them? File the formal complaint? Because that would require you to document everything that happened here tonight. Every word said, every action taken. And that documentation would be reviewed not just by base command, but by JAG to ensure no regulations were violated during your investigation. The implicit threat was clear. Any formal complaint would expose their harassment, their physical intimidation, and their violation of base protocols. It would turn them from accusers into the accused. Ashley remained silent through this exchange, her posture relaxed but ready. She had been through interrogations before, real ones where the stakes were life and death, not just ego and embarrassment. These rangers thought they were tough, thought they were elite, but they had no idea what real darkness looked like, what kind of decisions had to be made in places where there were no good choices, only necessary ones. Master Sergeant Cross, who had remained silent during the recent exchanges, finally spoke up. If we're done here, I need to secure the mess hall. Carter, how much longer do you need to finish cleaning? 15 minutes, Master Sergeant, Ashley replied. Rangers, Lieutenant Thompson will escort you out now, Cross said firmly. The four rangers looked at each other, realizing they had lost control of the situation completely, but Ethan wasn't quite ready to give up. As Lieutenant Thompson ushered them toward the door, he turned back to look at Ashley. This isn't over, he said quietly. I know something's not right here, and I'm going to find out what it is. Ashley met his gaze for the first time, really met it. For just a moment, Ethan saw something in her eyes that made his stomach drop. It wasn't fear or anger or defiance. It was the kind of emptiness that came from seeing too much, doing too much, losing too much. The eyes of someone who had been to places he could only imagine, done things that would haunt his dreams. Be careful what you look for, Sergeant, she said quietly. You might not like what you find. The Rangers left, escorted by Lieutenant Thompson, their departure marked by sullen silence and wounded pride. As the door closed behind them, the remaining personnel in the mess hall seemed to collectively exhale. Special operators transitioning from classified units face unique financial challenges. Specialized insurance providers now offer coverage for personnel whose service records are largely redacted. These policies account for undisclosed injuries, classified deployment histories, and ongoing security clearances that affect civilian employment. Investment strategies designed for ghost operators consider the reality that much of their service can never be verified through normal channels, protecting their financial futures while maintaining operational security. Major Torres remained behind after the others left, watching as Ashley returned to her cleaning with the same methodical precision she had shown throughout the confrontation. Carter, he said quietly, I think we need to have a conversation. I'm just a janitor, sir, Ashley replied without looking up. Nothing to talk about. Right, Torres said slowly. A janitor who can perform joint locks, read service records from body language, and make a ranger back down with a look. That's some janitor training program. Ashley continued mopping, the rhythm steady and hypnotic. You'd be surprised what you learn cleaning up after soldiers, sir. Torres studied her for another moment, then nodded. I'm sure I would. Have a good evening, Carter. And if you ever need anything, my office is always open. After Torres left, only Master Sergeant Cross remained. He walked over to Ashley, who was wringing out her mop in the fresh water she had gotten to replace what Ethan had spilled. You know, I've been in the Army for 20 years, Cross said conversationally. Served in Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, worked with a lot of different units. Some of them didn't officially exist. Ashley said nothing, focusing on her mopping. The thing about those units, Cross continued, is that they train their people differently. Not just the physical stuff, but the mental side. How to blend in, how to be invisible, how to be anyone or no one as the mission requires. Still, Ashley remained silent. I'm not asking any questions, Cross said. Not my business. But I want you to know something. This mess hall, this base, we take care of our own. Whatever you were, whatever you are now, you're safe here. Ashley finally looked up at him. Thank you, Master Sergeant, but I'm just a janitor, Cross finished. I know, and I'm just a cook. Funny how that works out sometimes. He gave her a meaningful nod and headed for his office, leaving Ashley alone in the mess hall. She continued cleaning, her movements efficient and thorough. To anyone watching on the security cameras, she was just a custodian doing her job. Nothing more, nothing less. But alone with her thoughts, Ashley's mind wandered to places and times she tried not to visit. The weight of the jacket on her shoulders felt heavier than it should, laden with memories that wouldn't stay buried no matter how hard she tried to forget. She had come to Fort Bragg for a reason, taken this job for a purpose that went beyond simply needing employment. There were things happening on this base, patterns that had drawn attention from people whose job it was to notice such things. And sometimes, the best way to observe was to become invisible, to be someone so beneath notice that people forgot you were there. The four rangers had disrupted that invisibility tonight, drawn attention she didn't want. But perhaps that was inevitable. Perhaps no matter how hard she tried to disappear, some part of her would always stand out to those trained to look for threats. Captain Anderson had seen something in her records, something that had made her step back. Ashley wondered how much had been visible, how many layers of classification Anderson had managed to penetrate, before hitting the walls that protected the deepest secrets. Those secrets were the reason Ashley was here, mopping floors and emptying trash cans. They were the reason she endured the dismissive looks and condescending comments from people who had no idea who she really was or what she had done. Because somewhere on this base, hidden among the thousands of soldiers and support staff, was someone who shouldn't be here, someone whose presence represented a threat that most people couldn't even imagine. The Rangers thought they were elite, thought they were the apex predators in the military food chain. But they were still conventional forces, still part of the acknowledged structure of American military might. They didn't know about the other world, the shadow world where operations happened that were never recorded, where soldiers fought wars that didn't officially exist, where victories were measured in secrets kept rather than ground gained. Ashley had been part of that world once, part of Ghost Unit 7, a designation that appeared in no official records, a unit that had never existed on paper but had shaped the course of conflicts across the globe. They had been the scalpel when the military needed precision, the hammer when overwhelming force was required, the ghosts when attribution had to be avoided. But that was before Kandahar, before Operation Blackwater, before the night when everything went wrong and she became the sole survivor of something that had never officially happened. The physical scars had healed, mostly. The mental ones were another matter, but the worst scars were the ones on her soul. The weight of being the only one to walk away when better soldiers, better people, had died. She pushed these thoughts away, focusing on the simple task of cleaning. The floor was almost done, the tables wiped down, the serving lines sanitized. Simple tasks with clear objectives and measurable outcomes. So different from the murky world she had once inhabited. The door to the mess hall opened one more time, and General Arthur Blackwood entered. The base commander rarely visited the mess hall at this hour, but he had received several messages in the last 30 minutes that had drawn his attention. Ashley didn't look up, didn't acknowledge his presence. She continued mopping, the picture of a diligent worker focused on her task. Blackwood walked slowly through the space, his footsteps measured and deliberate. He was a man who had seen 4 decades of military service, who had risen through the ranks based on competence and political acumen in equal measure. He had commanded conventional forces and worked with special operations. He had been briefed on programs that most generals didn't know existed. He stopped near where Ashley was working, watching her for a moment. "Working late tonight, Carter?" "Yes, sir." "Almost finished, sir." Blackwood nodded slowly. "I heard there was some disturbance earlier. Everything all right?" "Yes, sir. Just a misunderstanding. It's been resolved." "Good," Blackwood said. He started to walk away, then paused. "Carter, I reviews all civilian employment files when I took command of this base. Interesting reading sometimes. Surprising how many of our civilian employees have military backgrounds." Ashley's mop paused for just a fraction of a second before continuing its rhythm. "I imagine so, sir." "Some of those backgrounds are more interesting than others," Blackwood continued. "Some have gaps, periods of time that aren't accounted for, classification stamps where you wouldn't expect them." Ashley said nothing, but her body had tensed slightly, ready for whatever was coming. "I want you to know," Blackwood said carefully, "that this base values all its employees. Whatever someone did before, whatever brought them here, as long as they're contributing now, they're part of the Fort Bragg family." "Thank you, sir," Ashley replied quietly. Blackwood started to leave, then turned back one more time. Oh, and Carter, if you ever need to discuss anything at all, my door is always open, day or night. The offer hung in the air, loaded with implications that went far beyond a general's normal concern for a civilian janitor. I'll remember that, sir. After Blackwood left, Ashley finished her cleaning in solitude. The mess hall was spotless, ready for the breakfast crew that would arrive in just a few hours. She gathered her supplies, stored them in the janitorial closet, and prepared to leave. As she reached for the light switch, she caught her reflection in the darkened window. A small woman in a janitor's uniform and an old army jacket. Nothing remarkable about her appearance. But sometimes, in moments like this, she could see the ghost of who she had been. The operator who had infiltrated impossible places, eliminated impossible targets, survived impossible odds. That woman was supposed to be dead, killed in Kandahar along with the rest of Ghost Unit 7. In a way, she had died there. What walked out of that hell was something else. Someone else. Ashley Carter, janitor, nobody special, nothing to see here. But tonight, for just a moment, the ghost had shown herself. The Rangers had pushed and prodded until the carefully constructed facade had cracked, letting something else peek through. Tomorrow, there would be questions, investigations, reports filed, and queries made. Before the shocking revelation that changes everything, take a second to like this video if you believe every veteran deserves respect, regardless of their current circumstances. Your engagement helps more people discover these powerful military stories that mainstream media never tells. What's coming will leave you speechless. She turned off the lights and locked the mess hall behind her, stepping out into the cool night air of Fort Bragg. The base was quiet at this hour, most personnel asleep in their barracks or quarters. But Ashley knew that somewhere, in offices that never closed, phones were ringing and computers were searching. Her simple confrontation with 4 arrogant Rangers had set things in motion that couldn't be stopped. The careful anonymity she had cultivated was cracking, and soon, very soon, the truth would come out. As she walked toward her small apartment off base, Ashley's hand went unconsciously to her shoulder, where beneath the jacket and shirt, ink told a story that no one at Fort Bragg was cleared to know. The tattoo that marked her as one of the 7. The ghosts who had gone into Kandahar on a mission that had never officially happened. Tomorrow, she thought, or perhaps the day after, someone would see that mark. Someone would recognize what it meant. And then the questions would really begin. But tonight, she was still just Ashley Carter, janitor, nobody important. Tonight, she could maintain the fiction a little longer. Tonight, she could pretend that the ghosts of Kandahar didn't follow her everywhere she went, that the faces of her dead teammates didn't haunt her dreams, that the weight of being the only survivor didn't crush her a little more each day. The Rangers thought they had cornered someone weak, someone vulnerable. They had no idea they had cornered someone who had already lost everything that mattered, someone who had already faced the worst the world had to offer and walked away when others hadn't. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new confrontations, new revelations. But tonight, Ashley Carter walked through the shadows of Fort Bragg, invisible once more, a ghost among the living, waiting for the moment when the truth could no longer be hidden. The base slept on, unaware that one of the most decorated operators in American military history had just mopped their floors and emptied their trash. Unaware that heroes sometimes wore janitor uniforms instead of capes. Unaware that the greatest battles were sometimes fought not with rifles and explosives, but with mops and silence and the kind of patience that came from having already lost everything that mattered. But soon, very soon, they would all know. The secret that Ashley Carter had fought so hard to bury was about to be exposed, and when it was, Fort Bragg would never be the same. The next morning arrived with the harsh clarity of a North Carolina sunrise, painting Fort Bragg in shades of gold and shadow. Ashley Carter stood in her small apartment bathroom, staring at her reflection in the cracked mirror. She hadn't slept well, never did really, but last night had been worse than usual. The confrontation with the Rangers had stirred memories she worked hard to keep buried, like sediment at the bottom of a lake that clouds the water when disturbed. She pulled on her janitor's uniform with the same precision she had once used to don tactical gear, every movement efficient, every piece in its proper place. The old army jacket hung on a hook by the door, still carrying the faint scent of industrial cleaner, and something else, something that might have been cordite if anyone had gotten close enough to notice. Her phone buzzed with a text from Master Sergeant Cross. "Brass asking questions, heads up." Ashley deleted the message immediately, a habit born from operational security protocols that had become second nature. She knew this was coming. Captain Anderson's database search last night would have triggered flags, automated systems, noting when someone accessed files with classification levels beyond their authorization. The military intelligence apparatus was like a sleeping giant. Once awakened, it was thorough in its curiosity. She arrived at Fort Bragg at 0530, an hour before her shift officially started. The base was already alive with morning PT, formations of soldiers running in synchronized cadence, their chanted calls echoing across the grounds. Ashley parked in the civilian employee lot and walked toward the mess hall, her stride measured and unremarkable. But something was different this morning. She noticed it in the way people looked at her, or rather, the way they tried not to look. Word had spread, as it always did on military bases. The 4 Rangers had talked, despite their humiliation. Others had shared what they witnessed. Videos had been quietly circulated among the barracks. The janitor who had made 4 elite soldiers back down was suddenly visible in a way she had never wanted to be. Inside the mess hall, the breakfast crew was already at work. Specialist Jennifer Martinez looked up from the grill and gave Ashley a small nod, something that had never happened before. Private First Class Tommy Chen actually moved aside to let her pass, a courtesy previously reserved for NCOs and officers. Ashley began her morning routine, checking supplies, preparing cleaning stations, reviewing the schedule, normal, mundane tasks that helped maintain her cover. But she could feel the weight of observation, like crosshairs on her back. At 0700, the mess hall opened for breakfast. Soldiers filed in, the usual morning chaos of trays and conversations and the clatter of silverware. Ashley stayed in the background, mopping areas that had already been cleaned, maintaining the fiction of being just another invisible service worker. Then they walked in. Not the 4 Rangers from last night, but their entire squad, 12 soldiers all wearing the distinctive tan berets that marked them as Rangers, all moving with the coordinated purpose of a unit that had decided to make a statement. Ethan Blake led them, his jaw set with determination that suggested he had spent the night nursing his wounded pride into something harder and more dangerous. They took over 2 tables in the center of the mess hall, their presence immediately changing the atmosphere. Conversations quieted. Other soldiers found reasons to sit elsewhere. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees. Ashley continued mopping, her back to them, but every sense alert to their movements. She heard chairs scraping, trays being set down with unnecessary force, the low murmur of voices discussing something with intensity. Connor Mitchell's voice carried despite his attempt to keep it low. I ran her name through every database I could access. Ashley Carter barely exists before 2 years ago. It's like she appeared out of nowhere. People don't just appear, Mason Hayes replied. Everyone has a history. If hers is hidden, there's a reason. Logan Foster, still nursing his bruised wrist and ego from last night, added, maybe she's in witness protection, or maybe she's a deserter using a fake identity. Their speculation was interrupted by the arrival of Captain Anderson, who entered the mess hall with purposeful strides. She wasn't here for breakfast. Her trajectory took her straight to Ashley. Ms. Carter, Anderson said formally, loud enough for others to hear. Could I speak with you privately? Ashley set down her mop, aware that every eye in the mess hall was watching. Of course, Captain. They stepped outside, away from the windows but still within sight of security cameras. Anderson's expression was carefully neutral, but her eyes held questions that went beyond professional curiosity. I need to ask you something, and I need an honest answer, Anderson began. Last night, when I searched your name in our databases, I hit classification walls I've never encountered before, files that require clearance levels that technically don't exist in normal military structure. Who are you? Ashley met her gaze steadily. I'm a janitor, Captain. I clean the mess hall, empty trash cans, mop floors. That's what you do, Anderson pressed. I'm asking who you are, or maybe more accurately, who you were. Sometimes, Ashley said carefully, the best answer to a question is not asking it in the first place. Anderson's eyes narrowed. Is that a threat? No, ma'am. It's a kindness. There are things in military service that are better left buried. Operations that never happened, units that never existed, soldiers who were never there. Ghost stories, Anderson said quietly. Exactly, Ashley replied. Stories, nothing more. Before Anderson could respond, her phone buzzed with an urgent notification. She glanced at it, and her face went pale. I have to go, but this conversation isn't over. As Anderson hurried away, Ashley noticed movement in her peripheral vision. Major Torres was standing by the entrance to the base command building, watching their interaction. When he caught Ashley's eye, he gave a slight nod and disappeared inside. Ashley returned to the mess hall, where the atmosphere had grown even more tense. The Rangers were standing now, formed in a loose semicircle near the serving line. Ethan Blake was holding something in his hand, something small and metallic that caught the morning light. "Look what I found," Ethan announced loudly enough for the entire mess hall to hear. "Must have fallen out of someone's pocket last night." He held up a challenge coin, but not just any coin. This one was black, with markings that most people wouldn't recognize. But Ashley recognized it immediately. It was hers, must have fallen from her jacket during the confrontation. She had carried it for 3 years, the only physical reminder she allowed herself of who she had been. The coin bore no unit designation that anyone could read, no text that made sense to conventional forces. Just a number, 704, and a symbol that looked like a ghost rendered in silver against the black background. "Anyone know what unit this is from?" Ethan asked with false innocence. "Because I've never seen it before, and I've seen a lot of challenge coins." The trap was obvious but effective. If Ashley claimed the coin, she would have to explain it. If she didn't, Ethan would use it as evidence that she was hiding something. Master Sergeant Cross emerged from the kitchen, his expression dark. "Sergeant Blake, what exactly are you doing in my mess hall?" "Just trying to return lost property, Master Sergeant," Ethan replied, but his eyes never left Ashley. "That's mine," Ashley said quietly, stepping forward. The mess hall fell completely silent. Even the kitchen staff stopped working, sensing that something significant was happening. "Really?" Ethan's voice dripped with satisfaction. "Then you won't mind explaining what unit this is from. What does 704 mean?" Ashley reached for the coin, but Ethan pulled it back. "Not until you answer the question. What unit is this from?" "Give her the coin, Sergeant," Cross ordered. "With respect, Master Sergeant, she's claiming military service. She should be able to identify her own unit." The other Rangers had closed ranks behind Ethan, creating a wall of tan berets and crossed arms. The message was clear. They weren't backing down this time. Ashley felt the familiar calm that came before action, the way time seemed to slow, and options became crystal clear. She could walk away, maintain her cover, let them have their victory. Or she could take the coin and deal with the consequences. Before she could decide, General Blackwood entered the mess hall. The effect was immediate. Everyone snapped to attention, the ingrained response to a general officer's presence. Blackwood walked through the rigid formations of soldiers like he was reviewing troops, his eyes taking in everything. The Rangers' aggressive positioning, Ashley standing alone, the challenge coin in Ethan's hand. "At ease," Blackwood said, though his tone suggested anything but ease was expected. "Sergeant Blake, what's that in your hand?" "A challenge coin, sir. Found it on the floor. Ms. Carter claims it's hers." Blackwood held out his hand. "May I?" Ethan had no choice but to hand over the coin. Blackwood examined it carefully, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, his entire demeanor changed. His shoulders straightened, his jaw tightened, and something that might have been recognition or possibly fear flickered across his face. "Where did you get this?" Blackwood asked Ashley directly. "It was given to me, sir," Ashley replied. "By whom?" Ashley hesitated, then said quietly, "Colonel Marcus Thompson, Kandahar Province, August 15th, 2017. The date meant nothing to most people in the mess hall, but Blackwood's reaction was immediate. He took a step back, his hand unconsciously moving to his chest as if checking for something. "You were there? At Firebase Phoenix?" "Yes, sir." The admission hung in the air like a revelation. Firebase Phoenix was a name whispered in certain circles. A place where something had happened that changed the course of the war in Afghanistan, though exactly what remained classified beyond most people's ability to discover. "That's impossible," Connor Mitchell interjected, forgetting protocol in his disbelief. Firebase Phoenix was overrun. No survivors. "No acknowledged survivors," Blackwood corrected quietly. "There's a difference." The general turned to address the entire mess hall. "Everyone except essential personnel, clear out. Now." The authority in his voice brooked no argument. Soldiers began filing out immediately, though their curiosity was palpable. The Rangers started to leave as well, but Blackwood stopped them. "Not you. You started this, you'll see it through." He turned to Ashley. "Ms. Carter, or should I say, Master Chief Carter." The use of the rank caused several sharp intakes of breath. Master Chief was a Navy rank, E9, the the second highest enlisted rank possible. For a janitor to be addressed as such by a general was unprecedented. "I haven't used that rank in 3 years, sir," Ashley replied. "Ranks in certain units are never truly relinquished," Blackwood said. He pulled out his own phone, dialing a number from memory. "This is Blackwood. Authentication code Tango 77 Alpha. I need immediate verification on a ghost unit operator." He paused, listening. 704. "Yes, I'll wait." The silence in the mess hall was absolute. The Rangers stood frozen, their earlier aggression evaporating as they began to understand they had stumbled into something far beyond their comprehension. Blackwood's phone buzzed. He listened for a moment, his expression growing more serious with each passing second. When he finally spoke again, his voice was careful, measured. "I understand. Yes, sir. I'll handle it personally." He ended the call and looked at Ashley with an expression that combined respect, wariness, and something that might have been pity. "Master Chief Ashley Nicole Carter," he said formally. "Ghost Unit 7, Operator 704, sole survivor of Operation Blackwater, Navy Cross with classified citation, Silver Star with V device, 3 bronze stars, Purple Heart with 2 clusters." Each medal he listed hit the Rangers like a physical blow. These weren't just decorations. They were a testament to a level of service that most soldiers could only dream of achieving. "Sir," Ethan Blake stammered, "that's not possible. She's just—" His voice trailed off as Blackwood turned his gaze on him. "She's just what, Sergeant? A janitor? A woman? Someone you thought you could intimidate because she didn't fight back?" Ashley stepped forward slightly. "General, this doesn't need to become an issue. I chose this position. I chose to remain anonymous." "Why?" Mason Hayes asked, forgetting himself. "Why would someone with that record choose to mop floors?" Ashley looked at him with those empty eyes Ethan had glimpsed the night before. "Because Master Chief Carter died in Kandahar with the rest of her unit. What came back was something else. Someone who just wanted to disappear." "But you're here," Blackwood observed, "at Fort Bragg. That's not exactly disappearing." "No, sir," Ashley admitted. "It's not." The implication hung in the air. She wasn't here by accident. She had come to Fort Bragg for a reason, taken this job with purpose. Logan Foster, young and still naive enough to voice what others were thinking, asked, "What's Ghost Unit 7? I've never heard of it." "That's because it doesn't exist," Blackwood replied. "Never has. It's a designation for operators who perform missions that never happen, in places we've never been, against enemies we never fought." "Black Ops," Connor breathed. "Beyond black," Blackwood corrected. "So classified that even acknowledging their existence requires presidential authority." He looked at Ashley again, which raises the question of why someone with that level of classification is mopping floors in my mess hall. Ashley remained silent, but her stance had shifted subtly. She was no longer the submissive janitor trying to avoid conflict. She stood with the bearing of someone who had commanded respect in the most dangerous places on Earth. "Show them," Blackwood said suddenly. "Sir, the tattoo. I know all Ghost Unit operators have them. Show them what they've been harassing." Ashley hesitated, then slowly removed her janitor's shirt, revealing a black tank top underneath. She turned her shoulder toward them, pulling the tank top strap aside. The tattoo was a work of art and horror combined. A skull wearing a special operations helmet, surrounded by 7 stars, 6 of them filled in black, 1 still outlined. Below it, coordinates were etched: 34.5553 DN, 69.2075 DE, Kandahar Province, Afghanistan. The date, 08-15-2017. And wrapped around it all, in Latin, "Mortuae vivos docent." The dead teach the living, but it was the names that made everyone step back. 6 names, etched in small script around the design. 6 operators who had died in an operation that had never officially occurred. Thompson, Rodriguez, Chen, Williams, Johnson, Mitchell, Ashley recited quietly. "My team, my brothers. The reason I'm still here, and they're not." Elite military units require specialized legal representation when service records are classified beyond standard military courts. These attorneys hold top-secret clearances and understand the complexities of defending operators whose missions officially never existed. They navigate the intersection of national security and individual rights, ensuring heroes receive proper legal protection even when their greatest achievements must remain forever hidden from public record. The weight of that survivor's guilt was palpable, filling the mess hall with a heaviness that made breathing difficult. The Rangers, who moments before had been so sure of their superiority, now looked like children who had awakened something ancient and dangerous. "How?" Ethan asked, his voice barely above a whisper. "How did you survive when they didn't?" Ashley's hand unconsciously went to her abdomen, where beneath the tank top, scars told their own story. "Because they made sure I did. 6 operators gave their lives to get one wounded teammate to extraction. They decided I was worth saving. I've been trying to prove them right ever since." General Blackwood cleared his throat, emotion making his voice rough. Operation Blackwater was a direct action mission against a high-value target in Kandahar province. The intelligence was solid, the planning perfect. What we didn't know was that we'd been compromised. The enemy was waiting. He paused, gathering himself. Ghost Unit 7 held their position for 17 hours against an enemy force that outnumbered them 50 to 1. They called in danger-close airstrikes on their own position. They fought until their ammunition was gone. Then they fought with knives, then with their bare hands. And when it was clear that extraction was impossible for all of them, they made a choice. "They put me on the last bird out," Ashley continued, her voice hollow. "Thompson, my team leader, he was shot 3 times but still standing. He pushed me onto that Black Hawk, told me to tell their story, to make their sacrifice mean something." "But their story is classified," Logan said, confused. "Exactly," Ashley replied. "Their heroism, their sacrifice, it can never be acknowledged publicly. Their families were told they died in a training accident. There are no medals to display, no monuments with their names, no recognition of what they gave." The Rangers were beginning to understand the weight Ashley carried. Not just survivor's guilt, but the burden of being the only person who could remember heroes whose heroism could never be celebrated. "So, you became a janitor," Connor said slowly, piecing it together. "I became invisible," Ashley corrected, "because that's what I was trained to be. And because—" She paused, considering how much to reveal. "Because you're hunting someone," Blackwood finished for her. Ashley's eyes snapped to his, sharp and alert. The general nodded slowly. "I've been briefed. Not fully, but enough to know that you didn't come to Fort Bragg by accident. There's someone here, aren't there? Someone connected to what happened in Kandahar?" "I can neither confirm nor deny any ongoing operations, sir," Ashley said formally. "Of course not," Blackwood agreed, then louder, addressing the Rangers. "What you've witnessed here is classified. You will not discuss it, you will not record it, you will not even think about it outside this room. Is that understood?" "Yes, sir," they replied in unison, though their eyes remained fixed on Ashley with a mixture of awe and disbelief. "Sergeant Blake," Blackwood continued, "you and your team owe Master Chief Carter an apology. A real one, not some half-hearted mumbling." Ethan Blake stepped forward, his entire demeanor transformed. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something approaching genuine remorse. He came to attention and delivered a crisp salute. "Master Chief Carter, I apologize for my behavior and that of my team. We dishonored ourselves and the uniform with our actions. There is no excuse for how we treated you." One by one, the other Rangers followed suit. Connor, Mason, and finally Logan, each offering apologies that carried the weight of genuine understanding. Ashley returned their salutes with precision. "Your apologies are accepted, but understand something. Respect isn't about rank or achievements. It's about recognizing the humanity in everyone you meet. The janitor, the cook, the clerk, they all have stories. They all deserve dignity." "Yes, Master Chief," Ethan replied, and for the first time, there was real respect in his voice. General Blackwood wasn't finished. "There will be consequences for your actions. Harassment of civilian personnel, conduct unbecoming, violation of base protocols after hours. You'll all face Article 15 proceedings. Reduction in rank is likely, possible transfer to different units." The Rangers accepted this without protest. They had crossed lines that couldn't be uncrossed, and they knew it. "Additionally," Blackwood continued, "you'll each volunteer 100 hours of community service. You'll work with Master Chief Carter, if she's willing, to learn what real service looks like when it's not about glory or recognition." Ashley nodded slightly. "I can work with that, sir." "Now get out of my sight," Blackwood ordered the Rangers. "Report to your commanding officer and inform him of what's transpired here. I'll be calling him within the hour." The Rangers filed out, their earlier swagger completely deflated. As Logan passed Ashley, he paused. "Master Chief, I'm sorry. Not just for last night, but for your loss, your team. Ashley met his eyes, seeing genuine empathy there. Thank you, Foster. Learn from this. Become better. After the Rangers left, only Blackwood, Ashley, and Master Sergeant Cross remained in the mess hall. The morning sun had climbed higher, casting long shadows through the windows. So what now? Cross asked. Your cover is blown. The whole base will know within hours. Maybe that was always going to happen, Ashley said thoughtfully. Maybe it was time. Blackwood studied her. The person you were looking for, are they a threat to this base? They're a threat to something more important than any single base, sir, Ashley replied carefully. Do you need resources? Support? I need to remain invisible, sir. Or at least, I needed to. Now, she shrugged. Now we'll see what happens when the ghost becomes visible. Blackwood reached into his pocket and pulled out his own challenge coin, placing it on the table in front of Ashley. You have my support, Master Chief. Whatever you need, whenever you need it. Ashley picked up the coin, examined it, then placed her own recovered coin next to it. Thank you, sir, but I've learned to operate without support. It's safer for everyone that way. No one should carry that burden alone, Cross interjected. Someone has to, Ashley replied. That's what we signed up for, to carry the weight so others don't have to. Over the next several hours, word spread through Fort Bragg like wildfire. The story grew with each telling, becoming more elaborate and impressive. The janitor who was actually a SEAL, the woman who had taken down 4 Rangers without breaking a sweat, the ghost operator who had survived the impossible. Ashley continued her duties, but everything had changed. Soldiers who had never noticed her before now stopped to salute. Officers who had walked past without acknowledgement now nodded with respect. The invisible janitor had become the most visible person on base. Captain Anderson found her that afternoon, cleaning the officers' conference room. I've been doing research, Anderson said without preamble. Ghost Unit 7. There are references, fragments in classified databases. Missions that shaped policy but never officially happened. Captain, you should stop digging, Ashley warned. That rabbit hole doesn't have a bottom. There's something else, Anderson continued. I found a correlation. Every base where you've worked in the last 2 years has had a significant security incident shortly after you left. Espionage rings exposed, sleeper agents identified, terrorist plots prevented. Ashley continued cleaning, saying nothing. You're not just hiding, Anderson realized. You're hunting. You've been hunting for 2 years. Captain Anderson, Ashley said formally, I'm going to give you some advice. Forget what you've found. Delete your searches. Stop asking questions. Because the people I'm hunting, they have resources and reach you can't imagine, and they don't hesitate to eliminate threats. Is that what I am now? A threat? No, Ashley said, meeting her eyes. You're a good officer who stumbled into something beyond your clearance level. Walk away, please. Anderson studied her for a long moment. The Rangers, what happened with them? It's going to draw attention. People are going to come looking, aren't they? Probably, Ashley admitted. Then you're in danger. Ashley's smile was sad and knowing. Captain, I've been in danger every day for the last 10 years. It's the only state I know how to exist in. That evening, as Ashley was preparing to leave, she found Noah Richards waiting by her car. The young Marine who had tried to help the night before looked nervous but determined. Master Chief, he said, coming to attention, I'm not in your chain of command, Richards. You don't need to do that. With respect, ma'am, yes I do. He relaxed slightly but maintained his military bearing. I wanted to thank you. For what? For showing me what real strength looks like. Not the physical stuff, though that was impressive, but the strength to endure disrespect without losing yourself, to maintain discipline when others would have snapped, to serve without recognition. Ashley studied the young man, seeing something in him that reminded her of herself years ago, before the world had shown her its darker corners. Want some advice, Richards? Yes, ma'am. The military will teach you to fight, to follow orders, to be part of something bigger than yourself. But it won't teach you when not to fight, when to question orders, when to stand alone. Learn those lessons on your own. They might save your life someday. Is that what saved yours, in Kandahar? Ashley's expression darkened. No. What saved me in Kandahar was 6 men who decided my life was worth more than theirs. I've been trying to live up to that decision ever since. She got into her car but rolled down the window. Richards, you've got good instincts. You saw a situation that was wrong and wanted to help. Don't lose that. The military needs people who remember that right and wrong exist beyond regulations and rank. As she drove off base, Ashley noticed the black SUV following her. It had been there all day, maintaining professional distance but never losing sight of her. She recognized the surveillance pattern, the way they switched positions to avoid detection, but these weren't amateurs like the Rangers. These were professionals. Her phone rang. The number was blocked, but she recognized the encryption signature. "Hello, Colonel," she said. "Ashley." The voice was gravelly, aged by years of cigarettes and classified operations. Colonel David Marcus, her former handler, the man who had recruited her into Ghost Unit 7. "I hear you've been making noise." "Not by choice. It never is with you, but noise attracts attention. The kind of attention that asks questions about why a dead operator is mopping floors at Fort Bragg. I'm close, Colonel, closer than I've ever been. To finding him, to finding the truth about Kandahar, about who sold us out." There was a long pause. "Ashley, some truths are better left buried with the dead. Tell that to Thompson, to Rodriguez, to all of them. They deserve justice. They deserve to rest in peace, and so do you. I'll rest when I find him, when I find the mole who got them killed. And if that trail leads higher than you expect, if it goes all the way up the chain," Ashley's grip tightened on the steering wheel, "then I follow it. That's what they would have done. That's what got them killed," Marcus said bluntly. "Ashley, I'm calling to warn you. Your cover being blown isn't an accident. Someone wanted you exposed. Someone who knows you're hunting them. Then they made a mistake, because now I don't have to hide anymore. Or they're setting a trap, using you as bait to draw out others who might be investigating." Ashley considered this. "Possible, but I'm tired of shadows, Colonel. Maybe it's time for some direct action." "That's not your call to make. You're not operational anymore. You're a civilian. I'm a ghost, remember? We don't exist, which means the rules don't apply to us." "Ashley," Marcus's voice carried a warning. "I have to go, Colonel. Give my regards to the Pentagon." She hung up and tossed the phone out the window, watching in her rearview mirror as it shattered on the asphalt. She had other phones, other ways to communicate, but that particular line was now compromised. The black SUV was still following. Ashley made a sudden turn into a parking garage, spiraling up to the top level. She parked and got out, standing at the edge of the structure as the sun set over Fort Bragg. The SUV parked nearby. Two men got out, moving with the controlled grace of experienced operators. They approached slowly, hands visible but ready. "Master Chief Carter," the lead man said, "we need to talk." About? About Kandahar, about what really happened, and about why someone at Fort Bragg wants you dead. Ashley turned to face them fully. "I'm listening. If this story of hidden valor moved you, you'll be amazed by what's next. Subscribe for more incredible military revelations. 2 more powerful stories are on your screen. Choose one to continue this journey into the world of classified operations and unsung heroes." The man reached into his jacket slowly, pulling out a tablet. On the screen was a photograph Ashley hadn't seen in 3 years. It showed Ghost Unit 7, all 7 of them, standing in front of a Black Hawk at Firebase Phoenix. They were smiling, unaware that in 12 hours, 6 of them would be dead. "This photo was taken by someone who wasn't supposed to be there," the man said. "Someone who knew your mission parameters, your extraction routes, your contingency plans. Someone who passed that information to the enemy." "Who are you?" Ashley asked. "We're with the Defense Intelligence Agency. We've been investigating the intelligence failure at Kandahar for 2 years, and we think you're the key to breaking this open." "Why me?" "Because you're the only survivor. Because someone went to great lengths to ensure you lived when the rest of your team died. We think you know something, maybe something you don't even realize you know." Ashley studied the photograph, her fingers tracing the faces of her dead teammates. "They're all gone. Whatever they knew died with them." "Not all of them," the second man said. "Marcus Thompson kept a backup, an insurance policy, hidden somewhere. We think he told you where before he died." Ashley's mind raced back to those final moments in Kandahar. Thompson, blood streaming down his face, pressing something into her hand, his lips moving, words lost in the chaos of gunfire and explosions. She had always thought he was saying goodbye, telling her to survive. But what if... "I need to think," she said. "There's no time," the first man insisted. "The person we're hunting, they know you are here. They know your cover is blown. They're going to move against you, probably tonight. Let them come, Ashley said quietly. I'm tired of running, tired of hiding. This isn't just about you, the second man said. There are other operations at risk, other operators whose lives depend on maintaining their cover. If you're compromised, they could be too. Ashley felt the weight of responsibility settling on her shoulders again. It was never just about her. It was always about others, about the mission, about something bigger than individual needs or desires. What do you need from me? She asked. Come with us. Let us debrief you properly. Help us find what Thompson hid, and then we can end this. Ashley looked back at Fort Bragg, sprawling in the evening light. Somewhere on that base was the person responsible for Kandahar, the person who had sold out Ghost Unit 7 for reasons she still didn't understand. No, she said finally. We do this my way. Master Chief, that's not my rank anymore, Ashley interrupted. I'm nobody. I'm invisible, and that's exactly what I need to be for what comes next. She turned back to the two agents. You want the mole? Fine, but I'm not going into protective custody. I'm not sitting in a safe house while you investigate. I'm going hunting, tonight. That's not how this works, the first agent said. It is now, Ashley replied, because you need me more than I need you. I'm the only one who knows what Thompson's last words really were. I'm the only one who can identify the mole when I see them. And I'm the only one with nothing left to lose. The agents exchanged glances. Finally, the lead one nodded. What do you have in mind? Ashley smiled, but it was a cold expression, devoid of warmth. The Rangers stirred things up today. Everyone on base knows who I am now. The mole will have to act. They can't risk me remembering something, making a connection. So, they'll come for me. You're using yourself as bait. I've been bait for 2 years. The only difference is now I know it. She moved to her car, then paused. Tell your surveillance teams to back off. If I see them, the mole will too. Give me room to operate. We can't just... Yes, you can, because the alternative is I disappear tonight and you never find me again. I know how to become invisible. I've been doing it my whole life. The agents reluctantly agreed. As they returned to their SUV, the lead one called back, How will we know when you found them? You'll know, Ashley replied. Trust me, you'll know. As she drove back to her apartment, Ashley's mind was already working through the possibilities. The mole had to be someone with access to classified intelligence, someone who had been at Fort Bragg for at least 2 years, someone who could move freely without arousing suspicion. Her phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. The gym, midnight, come alone. Ashley smiled grimly. The hunter had become the hunted, but that had always been the plan. Sometimes the best way to catch a predator was to let them think they had already won. She arrived at her apartment and began her preparations. Hidden in a concealed compartment behind the water heater was a go bag she had hoped never to use again. Inside was everything she needed: weapons, communications equipment, and most importantly, a small encrypted drive that contained everything she had gathered over 2 years of investigation. As she geared up, Ashley thought about the Rangers who had confronted her. They had no idea what they had set in motion. Their harassment, born from arrogance and prejudice, had actually served a purpose. It had forced the mole to act, to reveal themselves in their desperation to eliminate the threat Ashley represented. At 2300 hours, Ashley left her apartment. She moved through the darkness with the skill of someone who had spent years operating in shadows. Every sense alert, every movement calculated. Fort Bragg at night was a different world. The familiar landmarks became potential ambush sites. The shadows could hide threats or allies. Ashley made her way toward the gym, but she took an indirect route, one that would reveal if she was being followed. She was. Multiple tails, professional, but not perfect. Some were probably DIA, despite her warning. Others were something else. The mole's people, perhaps. Or maybe the mole themselves. The base gym was a massive complex, usually busy during duty hours, but deserted at night. Ashley approached from the east, using the loading dock entrance she had memorized during her janitor rounds. The door was unlocked, as she expected. Inside, emergency lighting cast eerie shadows across the equipment. The sound of her footsteps echoed in the empty space. Ashley moved carefully, checking corners, watching reflections in the mirrored walls. I wasn't sure you'd come. The voice came from the basketball court. Ashley turned to see a figure emerge from the shadows. Her hand moved to the weapon concealed beneath her jacket, but she didn't draw it. Not yet. The figure stepped into the light, and Ashley's breath caught. It was General Blackwood. Surprised? He asked, his expression unreadable. No, Ashley lied. Disappointed, maybe. You have no idea what you've stumbled into, Master Chief. No idea how deep this goes. Enlighten me. Blackwood began to pace, his hands clasped behind his back. Kandahar wasn't just about eliminating a target. It was about sending a message, about showing certain people that American special operations could be compromised, could be defeated. You sold us out. I saved lives, Blackwood countered sharply. That operation would have triggered a wider conflict. Powers that be wanted an excuse to expand operations, to commit more troops. The death of Ghost Unit 7 was tragic but necessary to prevent a larger war. Necessary? Ashley's voice was ice cold. 6 men died. Heroes died. For politics? Everything is politics at that level. Every operation, every mission, every life. You were a tool, Master Chief. A very effective tool, but a tool nonetheless. And now? Now you're a problem. You couldn't just disappear, couldn't just let it go. You had to keep digging, keep hunting. It's what Thompson would have done. Thompson is dead, they're all dead, and soon... Blackwood's words were cut off by the sound of glass breaking. A smoke grenade rolled across the floor, followed by another, then another. Within seconds, the gym was filling with thick, obscuring smoke. DIA! Nobody move! Agents poured in from multiple entrances, weapons drawn, laser sights cutting through the smoke like red beams in fog. Blackwood reached for his sidearm, but Ashley was faster. She struck his wrist, sending the weapon spinning away, then drove her knee into his solar plexus. He doubled over, gasping. That's for Thompson, she said. Another strike. For Rodriguez. Another. For Chen. She continued until strong hands pulled her back. Master Chief, that's enough. We've got him. The smoke was clearing. Blackwood was on the ground, zip-tied and gasping for breath. Around them, other figures were being detained. Ashley recognized some of them. Officers and NCOs from Fort Bragg, people she had seen during her time as a janitor. The network was larger than she had imagined. The lead DIA agent from earlier approached. You did good, Master Chief. We heard everything, recorded everything. This is the break we needed. How did you know to be here? Ashley asked. We never left. We couldn't let you face this alone, no matter what you said. Ghost Unit 7 never leaves anyone behind, right? Ashley felt something break inside her, a wall she had built around her emotions. Tears ran down her face as the weight of 3 years of hunting finally lifted. It's over, the agent said gently. You found them. You got justice for your team. But Ashley shook her head. It's not over. Blackwood was just one piece. He said it goes deeper. Then we'll keep digging, but not tonight. Tonight, you've done enough. As they led Blackwood away, he called back to Ashley. You think you've won? You have no idea what you've started. They'll come for you. All of them. You'll never be safe. Ashley met his gaze steadily. I haven't been safe since the day I joined Ghost Unit 7. The difference is, now I'm not alone. She looked around at the DIA agents, at the military police securing the scene, at the entire apparatus of American intelligence mobilizing to uncover the truth about Kandahar. She thought about the Rangers who had inadvertently triggered this revelation, about Master Sergeant Cross who had shown her kindness, about Captain Anderson who had refused to stop digging despite the danger. Master Chief Carter, the lead agent said formally, the Director of National Intelligence would like to speak with you. There's a position available, if you're interested, off the books, of course, working with a team to identify and eliminate threats like this one. Ashley considered the offer. It would mean returning to the shadows, to the world of operations that never happened, and enemies who didn't exist. But it would also mean purpose, mean using her skills for something more than mopping floors. Can I think about it? She asked. Of course, take all the time you need. As Ashley walked out of the gym, she passed a group of soldiers who had been roused by the commotion. Among them were the 4 Rangers from the mess hall. They stood at attention as she passed, offering silent salutes that she returned with a nod. The sun was beginning to rise over Fort Bragg, painting the sky in shades of orange and gold. Ashley stood for a moment, breathing in the morning air, feeling something she hadn't felt in 3 years. Peace. Not complete, not perfect, but a start. Her phone buzzed with a message from Colonel Marcus. Heard the news, Thompson would be proud, they all would be. Ashley typed back, it's not finished. It never is, but today, you won. Let that be enough for now. She deleted the message and walked to her car. There would be debriefings, investigations, trials. The network Blackwood had been part of would be dismantled piece by piece. And somewhere in all of that, Ashley would have to decide who she wanted to be next. The ghost who had died in Kandahar? The janitor who had hidden at Fort Bragg? Or something new? Something that honored both the living and the dead? As she drove off base for what might be the last time, Ashley touched the tattoo on her shoulder. 6 names, 6 heroes, 6 reasons to keep fighting. The dead teach the living, the motto said. And Ashley Carter, Master Chief, Ghosts Unit 7, had learned their lessons well. But the most important lesson, the one she was only beginning to understand, was that surviving wasn't enough. Living, truly living, meant more than just hunting those responsible for the past. It meant building something for the future. Her phone rang. It was Noah Richards, the young Marine. Master Chief, I heard what happened. Are you okay? I'm fine, Richards. I wanted you to know what you said to me about knowing when not to fight, when to question orders. It made me think, made me want to be better. That's all any of us can do, Ashley replied. Be better today than we were yesterday. Will you be staying at Fort Bragg? Ashley looked in her rearview mirror at the base disappearing behind her. No, but I'll be around. Different bases, different missions, still serving, just in a different way. Master Chief, thank you for everything. Thank you, Richards, for reminding me that there are still good people in uniform, people worth protecting. She ended the call and drove toward the rising sun. Behind her, Fort Bragg was waking up to a new reality, one where heroes could hide in plain sight, where janitors could be warriors, where the truth, no matter how deeply buried, could still be uncovered. The investigation into Blackwood's network would reveal connections throughout the military-industrial complex. Arms dealers, defense contractors, foreign agents, all linked by greed and a willingness to sacrifice American lives for profit and power. Ashley's testimony would be crucial, her memory of events in Kandahar providing the key to understanding how deep the corruption went. But that was for tomorrow. Today, Ashley Carter was driving toward a new future, one where she didn't have to hide who she was or what she had done. The ghosts of Ghost Unit 7 would always be with her, but now they were companions rather than burdens, reminders of sacrifice and honor rather than guilt and failure. As she reached the highway, Ashley made a decision. She pulled over and dialed the DIA agent's number. I'll take the job, she said when he answered. But on one condition. What's that? We create a memorial for Ghost Unit 7. I don't care if it's classified, if only a handful of people ever see it. But there needs to be something, somewhere, that says they existed, that they mattered. I think that can be arranged. Then I'm in. Welcome back to the fight, Master Chief. Ashley smiled, the first genuine smile she had allowed herself in 3 years. I never left it. I just forgot what I was fighting for. She pulled back onto the highway, accelerating toward whatever came next. Behind her, the sun continued to rise, burning away the shadows that had hidden so much for so long. And somewhere, in whatever afterlife waited for warriors who died in service to their country, 6 ghosts smiled and finally found their peace. The story of the janitor who was really a Navy SEAL would become legend at Fort Bragg, told and retold with increasing embellishment. But the truth, the real truth of Ashley Carter and Ghost Unit 7 would remain classified, known only to those with the highest clearances and the deepest need to know. Yet, in a small, secure room in the Pentagon, a memorial would be erected. 7 names on a black granite wall, 7 stars above them, and an inscription. For those who served in silence, fought in shadows, and died without glory. The nation remembers, even if it can never acknowledge. And every year, on August 15th, a single visitor would come to that room. A woman who had been a ghost, a janitor, a warrior, and finally, a survivor. She would stand before those names, render a perfect salute, and whisper the words that had become her mission and her redemption. Mortuae vivos docent. The dead teach the living, and I'm still learning.